So, good morning. I'm really excited. Here's Susan Broder from Speak Languages and Travel the World, and I'm really excited to have an interview with Nicole from Think, Speak and Live.
Oh,
Nicole, hi. Where are you from?
I am from the United States, originally from New York, and that's where I grew up until I got married. And ever since then, I've been living in the South, in the southern part of the United States, about 16 years now. I have lived in Georgia, and I've also lived in North Carolina, which is where I'm currently living.
I see. So, did you move around for work or for your studies?
Well, mostly for my husband's work. He was working in technology and computer support. So that was why we moved to Georgia. But then we came back here to be with family.
Ah, that's very nice. So instead, I'm rather international. I was born in London from a multicultural family. And so, due to my father's job, we ended up in Munich, Germany. And then I met my husband. And so now I'm based mainly in Italy with my two kids, my husband, and yes, sometimes going up and down with Germany too. And Nicole, you teach English, but have you ever learned any other language?
Yes, I am a person who has always been very interested in languages. I started in first grade with Chinese.
Oh, wow. That's
That's
really
my
brave.
Yes. Well, my teacher was, I owe that to him. He had a wife who was Chinese, so he taught us how to count in Chinese, and that was really my first introduction to languages. Unfortunately, back then in the early 80s, there were not a lot of resources for children to learn Chinese. So the books and things that I had were for adults, and it was kind of difficult for me to learn, but I still know how to count to five.
No, that's really
And
nice. Nowadays, Chinese is such an important language to learn.
yes, it is. It's very important. And it's funny because actually my younger son, who is 7 years old, he also wants to learn Mandarin Chinese.
Okay, that's good. You could do it together.
Yes. I think that we will. I think we will take that on someday. I also studied Spanish. I studied Spanish in school. Here in the States, we have a mandatory language that most schools do have a mandatory second language that you have to study. But the bad thing is sometimes when we leave school, we still do not know how to speak the language. So I started in school studying grammar, and then after that, I continued on my own with just friends, and I was able to become fluent in Spanish.
That's
So,
really good. Have you had the opportunity to practice it anywhere outside the States? I mean, going to Mexico or Spain or somewhere?
yes, I that is my dream. So far, I haven't had the circumstances to travel, but it is definitely a goal of mine to travel, and I would love to go to Europe.
Hmm.
So
What we're
one day
lucky about is having the internet. We can travel through the internet, and
yes,
something that makes
that's
it
true.
much nicer. So even make friends abroad and practice your languages through the internet.
Yes,
And
and I have done that.
Oh, that's good. I've also had I mean, I grew up in England, and so in England it's mandatory to study French. At least when I went to school, it was mandatory to
Mhm.
study French, and so that was my first foreign language which I studied. In reality, my parents were of Italian origin, so they brought me up bilingual. But French was the first language I had to study. However, I was really lucky. I started at primary school, so we had a good teacher who taught us to speak with role plays rather than reading and writing. So yeah, we took the more sort of natural way, and by the time I got to middle school, I was ready for reading and grammar, and it was very good. And then I
Awesome.
pardon?
That's a great way to learn, to start off with speaking and then to learn the grammar afterwards.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. That's the way children learn. And that's why I believe in full immersion, speaking to students from the beginning, directly, even in simple language, but directly in the language that this person wants to learn. And then, I mean, babies do that. They listen for 2 years before they actually learn to speak. And I think that's the best way.
Yes.
So I'm very happy. In fact, I learned German, or rather I studied German in England at school, but I started at middle school and it just didn't work because we studied with grammar and reading straight away. And it was only when I moved to Germany, where I was fully immersed in the language, that I really picked it up. And
yeah, that the same was the case for me when I started to work and use Spanish in work. That's when I really made the progress. Before that, it was difficult. I had a lot of grammar in my head because of the way that I started. So I was very afraid to speak in case maybe I got something wrong. But once I started to use it for work, I made a lot of progress.
yeah, well, also you're motivated to use it when you can see it's really communicating. It's not just theoretical. And the exciting thing about modern technology is that we can now go onto the internet and watch, or also on TV, watch programs in the language we're studying. So that helps a lot too, to hear the real language and not just book language.
Yes.
Yes, please. I missed what you were saying. Are you agreed?
Yes, I totally agree.
Okay, I missed that.
There's so much available for us now. Currently, I'm learning French. So this is my first honest attempt to learn French. So I do watch programs in French, and I'm also learning Burmese.
Wow. What
Yeah.
prompted you to try Burmese?
Oddly enough, the town where I live in North Carolina has a small community of Burmese people. And so I wanted to be able to communicate with them. I always have this curiosity about cultures and people. So that prompted me to want to learn Burmese, which is not difficult to speak, but if you look at the way it's written, the script that they use is a little bit challenging to read coming from an English background.
But I do think that's very nice. That's something that I believe in. Why should we learn a language when there's all these Google translators? It's because you can get to speak and learn the culture behind the language if you actually learn the language. So I think it's exciting that you decided to learn Burmese. I don't know if I'd have the energy to do that because, if you have someone to talk to, that's lovely.
Yes.
But otherwise, I'd have difficulty doing it. I was forced to learn Spanish, which I hadn't intended learning because my grandmother was often going to Spain. She'd bought herself an apartment there. And so at a certain point, she needed, help. And so I picked up the language quite easily, though, from Italian. So I'm self-taught in Spanish, but I would like to get a certification. And so I've decided that when I can find time, I'll restart the studies I sort of put on hold last November.
Mm-hmm.
And why did you start teaching?
Well, I have always loved to teach. I think informally, before I decided to actually be a teacher or a tutor, I just really enjoy helping people to learn things, especially if I think that it is something that will help them to improve their lives. So I was working, my last job was in customer service, in bilingual customer service. So I would service customers in English and in Spanish. And I found that I really I really got a kick out of when I could help someone with something. But it was fleeting because then I would have to move on to the next call. And then there was this great sense of dissatisfaction. So
because it was so short.
Yes, 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 yes. It was very draining for me to do that because I'm more of a one-on-one person. So having to talk to so many people, hundreds of different people every day, eventually I did burn out. And so I started to think about what can I do? And I had a few friends already who were teaching English. They had been teaching English for years online. Some had their own businesses and some taught on platforms. So I decided that I would try out a particular platform.
That's
And
very nice.
but first, yeah, thank you. And well, what I did first is I took a course online that allowed me to get my TEFL certificate. And you don't absolutely need that to teach English, but I think it really helped me because it helped me to think about English in a different way, in a way that a learner would think about English instead of a native speaker. Sometimes there are a lot of things that we can miss because it's our native language, so we don't think about why we say things. So the course really helped me with that. And after I got my certificate, I started almost immediately teaching, and I love it.
That's really nice. Yes, you sound really passionate about it. My beginnings were slightly different. I was still a student, and I think, I'm not sure if I'd already finished school and just started university. I know I was still 17, and my mother got operated on her throat, and she was teaching in evening classes, and she couldn't speak, and they had to finish the course within a certain time limit. So she said, can you substitute me for a week or two? And the school agreed to it. So I went in and substituted. She was teaching Italian to adults. And so I went in and I said, well, I have nowhere to start. She said, well, just follow the book. And she explained what I had to do. And so I followed the book for 2 weeks, and then she went back to work. That was my beginning. And the school was so happy with it because they felt the students had benefited, that the next year they asked me if I could join in too. So I was 18 and I started teaching in the evening. And when I started, when I had my school friends, or university friends rather, who were out going to the pub, I was off to teaching. And so I got such a lot of experience teaching that I actually didn't have time for too much social life. But that gave me experience. I'd actually studied communications, and I was planning on being a journalist. But by the time I'd finished all my studies, I had a lot of experience in teaching, interpreting, translating, and so that's the way I went. I didn't actually teach Italian for very long. I then moved into English, and it took me a while to pick up, as you said, what students need to know from their point of view. But after 39 years, I feel very experienced, and I'm always happy to learn new methods, new things, because I think we never stop learning. But I feel I've got a solid background, so I can fall back on my solid background if I sometimes feel that modern technology is making me stray, let's put it this way. So yeah, no, I'm very happy, and what gives me most passion is yes, to see progress in my students and the positive feedback they give me. And what gives you the most satisfaction in teaching?
Yes, I have to agree with you. It's definitely when I get that positive feedback, but also when I have someone that has a very, very specific goal. Most of the time I work with professionals, people who have already even graduated from college, and they want to learn English so that they can improve their job in some way, move into another job. So I love when they have a very specific goal, and then we can work on that together. And I always tell them we're a team. It's not like I'm the teacher and you're the student, but we're a team. So I want to help you to achieve your goals. And what I find is that the more specific the goal, the more successful they are. And that gives me a lot of satisfaction when I see them making that progress.
I think I agree with that. So I presume your your target students are intermediate upwards, right?
Yes,
Uh,
yes. They would be professionals, mostly women. And I find that generally they come from Europe, some in South America. So, for example, Spain, Brazil, Ecuador, those seem to be the areas.
that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it is interesting. You just never know. You
you
never
get
know.
to- Now, I tend to have mainly males. That's interesting. But my students are also intermediate students upwards. And it's true, the ones that have a specific aim, I'm thinking, for example, I'm teaching a doctor who at the beginning was very rusty, and we've been working on his general English but also on his specific medical English, and he's really made progress in leaps and bounds, and yeah, I'm very happy for
Wow,
him.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's
no.
not medical English.
No, however, it's interesting that I tend to have more males than females. So yeah, that changes. And how do you manage to fit teaching into your daily life?
Well, my daily life is a little bit crazy, but I think that's natural for me because I tend to thrive in environments that have a lot of freedom. So I kind of make my own schedule daily. It depends on when my classes are, and then I plan everything else around my classes.
Oh,
Currently, I have a student now who has consistent classes every day, so it makes it a little bit easier to plan everything else after that. But we just kind of go with it. So every day is a little bit different. But I have my children at home with me. I homeschool them, which means that they receive their education from home. So we work on projects together, whatever they're interested in at the time. It's interesting because my oldest son is also very interested in languages. So he has studied German and Russian, and hopefully he'll continue to do that.
and
And
he's
my
only
young
7 years old.
no, oh, that's the 10-year-old, 10-year
Ah,
old.
okay, but still, 10 years old,
Yeah.
all those languages, that's really incredible. Awesome,
Yes,
awesome.
he loves especially written language. He's not so interested in speaking, but he really loves written language. So I think he just likes the way the letters look, the different kinds of letters. But he has studied German. I had him do German on Duolingo, which is actually really good to get a very basic start of a language.
Yep, I
Um,
agree with that. I often recommend it too. I know
Yes,
that's
it is
good.
very good to get an introduction. So he has gone pretty far in German. He's learned some phrases, but yes, we just do whatever they're interested in at the time, and we try to make those into projects. And that's why I enjoy working online. I can connect with people all over the world, and at the same time, I can spend time with my family.
Yeah, no, that's very important. I found that since I've gone online, I've really made a really wide personal learning network, and it's really exciting being in touch with
Yes, it
people all
is.
over the world. I have a bit of trouble juggling my family. Now they're older, they're independent. My children are 17 and 19, so I can say they're pretty independent. But we live in the countryside, so they do need chauffeuring around, just to get to school, get back, and so on. So I do feel slightly limited by their timetable, but now they're older, it's definitely much easier. When they were younger, I had to fit my teaching around their timetable. Now we sort of work parallel. In fact, now we should be eating together, but they have a tight timetable because they do sports, and they've just come in from school and they have sports training in, what is it? Yeah, in an hour. So they've got to make sure they eat the right things at the right time, or it doesn't work anymore. And what about your free time? What do you like doing in your free time?
Oh, my free time. Let's
Have you got
see.
free time?
Yeah, the thing is when you have a business from home and you have your children at home, there almost is no free time. It's like everything blends.
I agree.
There are no weekends. So but when I do have, when I'm not working or when we're not necessarily doing any formal schooling, I like to do volunteer work where I help people to make improvements in their life, help them with social things. And also I am an artist, a visual artist. So that's my other project. I really enjoy it. That's one of my paintings back there.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Thank
Really,
you.
really nice. Oh, beautiful. That's nice. I'm glad you find time for that. I used
Yes,
to, I used to
it's
paint,
a
but
balance. I don't find as much time as I would like, but it's enough where I get to express myself in a different way. And that's something that I do alone, as opposed to English, where I do that one-on-one or with people. So it's nice. I get to have my introverted time
no,
when
that's
I do.
very nice. Yeah, no, for myself, I'm interested in so many things, and in the last few years, I haven't dedicated much time to my personal interests, mainly sports to keep fit a little bit. And I used to do batik painting, but I almost don't anymore. I like reading and anything creative. But as I said, now, like you, I'm so passionate about my work and creating. More online work, videos, and a course that I'm really enjoying. So I suppose I could say it's also my hobby, not only my job, and that's nice.
Yes, I definitely can relate to that.
So that's very good. So I think we've covered most of the subjects. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
One thing I want to know about you is, do you get Spanish and Italian confused?
Well, let's say I'm very lucky because I grew up bilingual with Italian, so there's no way it can dominate my Spanish. But effectively, there was a period where I was studying Spanish very intensely, and I hadn't done French for a while. And although they're not very similar, they were similar enough to, yes, the Spanish was somehow interfering in my French. Because I hadn't been using my French for a while. So that was the only problem I had. But otherwise, I'd say, yes, if you're learning both Italian and Spanish as foreign languages, it could be pretty confusing, effectively. Is
Yes.
Italian on your list?
Italian, I have studied a little bit of Italian. And yes, I had the problem with and also Portuguese, the same thing with confusing it with Spanish a little bit. But yes, if I go to Italy, it will be on my list.
Okay, definitely.
No language is safe.
No, in fact, and that's what I wanted to say to any viewers who are interested in improving their languages. I think the most important thing is to try and be surrounded by the language in its natural context as much as possible. So through films or talking to people, just if you can't go there yourself, surround yourself with it, and that's the easiest and the most natural way to learn the language. As Nicole says, think, speak, and live. Okay then. Bye. It was really exciting talking to you, and I hope we'll be able to be in touch some more. Bye.
Yes, definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Check us out if you want some lessons specifically tailored to your needs. Nicole's online lessons at thinkspeakandlive.wordpress.com for a more specialized American English. And don't forget to check out her YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook too. Don't forget to subscribe. And Susan's online lessons at bilingual-communications.weebly.com for more British English. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.